Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thanks, everyone who came. It's nice to see you all here. Good morning. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And thanks to Native Son for hosting this. We tried a few locations, so it was kind of flying by the seat of our pants getting a location for this, but we got one. If this was any other religion, we might call that a sign, but you know.
Hey, we got it.
But we got a spot. So however that happened, we're grateful for it. And grateful for all of you guys. This is actually the fourth service like this that we've done. We've done 3 in Texas already. And usually what we do is we rent a public space, like a public library or something, which is cool. And just as evidence that this is not going to be too weird, none of the libraries have ever asked us not to come back. So they're okay. What we're doing is not offensive or controversial or anything. And hopefully we'll demonstrate that as we go. Can you guys all hear me okay? Great. And we do have a mic here, but the mic is for our recording, so it's not going to, you guys won't hear it. This is a religious ceremony of sorts. It's sort of a non-religious religious ceremony. It's a non-theistic religion, they would call it. So we're not going to be talking about gods or deities or anything like that. If you have a belief in God, that's kind of your own business. We consider that a personal thing. That's for each of us kind of to determine and decide on our own. This is the Ministry of Skepticism. So we take a skeptical approach to claims, which we'll talk more about as we go through the service, what that means, what skepticism is, what a skeptical approach is. Basically what it is an evidence-based approach to claims. But there are some things, like I said, that may be personal. If you have a personal reason or a personal connection with a God or a deity or the universe, again, that's for you to decide for yourself. It is not a prerequisite to participation in what we're doing here that you either believe or don't believe in anything. That is personal. Until there's an ultra-Orthodox version of the church, but that's up to Stephen. The mission of the Ministry of Skepticism is to provide an alternative to conventional religions. There's a lot of offerings out there that offer kind of a faith-based approach to morality and meaning and things like that. We're trying to create an evidence-based framework for finding meaning and community that is guided by scientific principles. So we want to do kind of what we're doing here in a small form, but we want this kind of to keep growing, and that's why we're doing it. We've been doing it in Texas, now we're doing it here because we have other friends here that may never make it to Texas. So we're trying to build a sense of fellowship and community based around kind of these principles. Today's theme is meaning. For each one of these services, we have a different theme, and we'll talk a little bit about how we arrive at these themes. That will come later. But just for now, know that today's theme is meaning. So LuLu's going to be giving what we call an incandescent speech about meaning, about her personal relationship to skepticism and growing up in a life without skepticism. I'll give an illumination, which is kind of our version of a sermon a little later. But they'll all be kind of based around this idea of meaning. And there will be some ceremonies and rituals. We've got a lantern here, right? We've got icons and talismans. We've got prayers. You guys each have a prayer book, so you'll be able to read along with some of these prayers as we go. But again, these are all, even though we're using kind of the language of religion, we're using the edifice here and the ceremonies of religion, it's all done from a non-theistic, non-deistic framework. And you'll see that as we read this stuff and as we go through these things. So hopefully, if that is interesting or meaningful to you, you'll find meaning and resonance with this. So to start, and to kind of set the framework, because one thing I should point out about this is that whenever you try to start a movement like this, every time we say, hey, we're starting a new religion, the first thing that comes to people's minds is, oh, okay, well, it's a cult, obviously. And that is a fair concern. This is a Ministry of Skepticism, so we encourage people to ask questions, right? One thing, there are several things that distinguish us, I think, from, or maybe that insulate us from those kinds of accusations. And one is that there's nothing special about me or even this church. There are no claims, right? There are no divine claims. There's no special knowledge here. We're just borrowing from what's already established through science and skepticism. There's a thing called scientific skepticism. It's just an approach to claims that, again, we'll get more into that. But so this church should work anywhere with anybody leading it. There's no cult of personality here. There's no special sacred knowledge that we are divining. It's just an evidence-based approach to claims and to meaning and to purpose and to morality. So to establish that, and to kind of support this notion that there's nothing special about me or us, these kinds of things have been talked about for a long time. Carl Sagan, has anyone heard of Carl Sagan? Yes. Astrophysicist, very good. And he's written several books. The Demon Haunted World is one of his seminal works, and it's a book about skepticism and an evidence-based approach claim to kind of existence. And yes, he was one of the most eloquent communicators about the beauty and the majesty of nature and the cosmos. So Celina is going to come up and she will read a quote from Carl Sagan that I think really perfectly sets up kind of what we're doing here. And this quote is actually in the prayer book. What page is it? Right when you open it up. It's the first quote in the prayer book. And do you have a mic?
Science is not only compatible with spirituality, it is a profound source of spirituality. When we recognize our place in an immensity of light years and in the passage of ages, when we grasp the intricacy, beauty, and subtlety of life, then that soaring feeling, that sensation, that sense of elation and humility combined is surely spiritual. So are our emotions in the presence of great art, or music, or literature, or acts of exemplary, selfless courage. The notion that science and spirituality are somehow mutually exclusive does a disservice to both.
Let it be so, right? So I say let it be so. Again, we're kind of mimicking religion. We're not just mimicking it, we are trying to establish a religion. So we have our customs and our rituals. We didn't say amen, we say let it be so. And there will be things throughout this that will feel kind of religious, like reading a prayer, saying let it be so. There will be times where we will say, and we say together, and we'll say, be the light, spread the light, protect the light. We encourage you guys to participate, but we also encourage you just to do whatever you feel comfortable with. If no one wants to say, it's not that big a deal, right? There are no rules here, there's no pressure, and there's no judgment. And what Carl Sagan said there is 100% on the nose. For people that, for whatever reason, end up not having a need for, or not necessarily having a belief in any deity or gods, we can feel like, or we can be made to feel like somehow we've been cut off from access to spirituality or meaning, like those are the exclusive domain of theistic religions. But that is an artificial distinction. It's not true, it's not real. That is something that other people are defining for you. So for those of us that don't have belief in deities, and again, it's not a prerequisite to this. You may have a relationship with a personal God or something like that, which is great. But for those of us that don't, we also have access to spirituality. It's possible to have meaningful, purposeful lives. And again, as Carl Sagan said, right, the way we feel in our personal relationships, our loves, the way we feel when we encounter great art or music, you can feel what it's like to experience meaning, to feel meaning. So why religion? I said that one of the first things people say is like, okay, well, is it a cult? And we say, no, it's not a cult. And then they're like, but why a religion? Again, for people that, for whatever reason, have left organized religion or just weren't raised with it, we can have kind of negative associations with what organized religion represents. And so then when you mention something like this to them, those feelings come up. So why religion? Why don't you call it something else? And there's a lot of good reasons that we're doing a religion. And one of them is the fact that you're all here. It gives us an opportunity to do something like this. It's harder to do this and call it a seminar, for instance. Like Randy thought, what time's the seminar? But if I invite everyone to come to a seminar, it doesn't quite capture the scope of this. We're aiming for something more elevated than a seminar. We're not just offering self-help or business advice, right? This really should be something that you can build a life around, build relationships, build community. And we do have values that are meaningful to us as a community. We should have a way to codify those values. Religions are really good at passing their lessons and their values and their morals down through generations and sharing them and spreading them within the community. It's harder to do that if you don't have a religion. And that's what happens when you leave organized religion. You end up just sort of, there's nothing that you do on Sundays anymore. You're not really talking to your kids about your values at the dinner table. And listen, I know plenty of people. I grew up non-religious, essentially. And we all say, yeah, we raise our children to be good kids. Okay, fine. But you can't really raise someone just with the absence of something and hope that you're instilling, that you're instilling values and morals. In fact, that was one of the key inspirations for this. I have a good friend who is a professor at the university where LuLu's getting her doctorate right now at UTD. Her ex-husband was a professor. They're academics, smart people. She's from Europe. He's from Canada. So, there's a lot that we can relate to in these people. And they raised their two kids, who are now teenagers, in a non-religious home with good values. And one day she's doing the family laundry and finds in her son, who at the time was 12 years old, in his jeans pocket, a little idol of Jesus. She was surprised by it. So she asked him, what's this all about? And he said, well, yeah, I've discovered the Bible, probably through friends at school, maybe on social media. And he's like, and I'm interested in it, and I've been reading the Bible. For her, this was unsettling and surprising. She's like, but didn't we raise you to be, good? Why do you feel like you need that? And he started to get a little defensive. He's like, but I feel like it makes me want to be a better person. So what's wrong with that? And there is nothing wrong with that. And so I don't want to get in. This story is not so much about the difference between what Christianity has to offer in terms of values or what something like the Ministry of Skepticism has to offer. The point of the story is that it's not enough just to raise someone non-religiously. People still long for the lessons and the teachings and the structure, the framework. So we are trying to create a framework so that someone like my friend Dorothy, who I'm talking about, when we raise our kids non-religiously, we're not just giving them the absence of religion, we are giving them something. And I raised LuLu I didn't raise her just with the absence of religion. I gave her something. I taught her skeptical values. And when she does her incandescence, when she gives her testimony, she's going to talk about that. Right? Are you going to talk about that? We'll see. She's feeling a little hungover. So we'll see how she does. Oh, Dad. Come on. Oh, Dad. Whatever. If I was writing a script for this, and I had to write the line where teenage daughter responds, that's exactly what I would write. I would write, rolls her eyes and says, whatever. Nailed it, babe. I'm not a teenager. Okay. We'll edit all that out. No, we won't. The values that are important to you, and these are important, you don't wait for other people to teach them to your kids. Because she's not getting it in school. Your kids aren't going to get it in school. They're not going to teach them critical thinking. And that's essentially what we're talking about here, right? It's critical thinking skills. Obviously, you're not getting it in church. You're not going to get it from your politicians. And it's hit or miss whether or not you're going to get it through social media or something like that. You're more likely to encounter the opposite, right? Misinformation, things like that. Other religions, Christians, Jews, Muslims, Buddhists, Hindus, they don't wait for other people to teach their kids what's important to them. They send them to Sunday school. They send them to Bible study. They talk about it when they say prayers at meals, at their special occasions, at weddings, at funerals. They are talking about these stories and these lessons and imparting them to their kids. We shouldn't wait either for other people to impart these lessons. Again, another reason why we're doing it. And religion works, guys. We keep talking about how good at Christians and Jews and Muslims they are at doing these things. It's because it works. We are wired for belief. We want structure. We want a way to indoctrinate, right? So we're trying to tap in to this system that already works. And so our objective is not to find an alternative to religion. Well, why don't we just call it something else? I mean, people have less baggage or less reservations over. Why don't we call it a seminar? Why don't we call it a meetup or a lesson or a teaching? Religion works. It perfectly captures the scope of what we're trying to do. The themes of meaning and purpose and insignificance, addressing these existential questions that we all care about. When we talk about religion, when we invoke religion, we know that it means that it encompasses all of those things. Perfect. Come on in. Nice. Represent. You're good. So, yeah, find a seat. They've got mimosas and coffee and water. And we're going to have brunch after for anyone that wants to hang out. Welcome. And for all that you've missed, you'll just have to watch the YouTube later. But so religion is already good at doing the things we want to do. So we're tapping into that. And so instead of trying to redefine or redescribe what we're doing, really what we're trying to do is readjust our attitudes toward religion. We're trying to rebuild and restore our faith in religion to make it something that we don't have these negative attitudes toward. By rebuilding the prayers and the rituals and reframing them around values that we actually do resonate with, and it will start to change our attitude toward religion. It does start to become something that actually represents us. As further evidence, or maybe just as a piece of evidence that kind of we're on to something, you guys are all here, and we were all lucky enough to be here at Blading Cup, and so we have this opportunity to meet in person. Not everyone is so lucky. Obviously there are people all over the world that won't be in Dallas or won't be at Blading Cup and aren't able to attend. But we've got an Instagram account. We're putting stuff up on YouTube. We've got a website. So we are able to reach out and find people, even if not quite as intimately. We got a message on our Instagram account from a rollerblader in Pennsylvania. I'm going to read you what he wrote, because it's a kind of a validation that we're onto something. And also it's interesting as rollerbladers, just to hear his personal journey, because part of his story is going from skateboarding to rollerblade. But he said, hey, it's a guy named Sean in Pennsylvania, and I made sure we got his approval to read this and share it. But he said, okay. He said, I was a skateboarder most of my life, but now that I'm 35, my direction has gone into aggressive inline after buying my first pair of blades. I ended up falling into a rabbit hole of documentaries, videos, old competitions, and seeing what's happening in the world now. And I stumbled upon the podcast that Arlo was on when he spoke about the Ministry of Skepticism. And he's talking about the Rollerblading is Still Fun podcast. I was on that just, I think, a couple weeks ago. He said it really piqued my interest. And I talked about Ministry of Skepticism in the Rollerblading is Still Fun podcast, among other things. He said, I've kind of been searching for something like this. I just didn't know what it was until now. He said, I've watched Michael Shermer's TED Talk. Michael Shermer is the editor of Skeptic Magazine, and he's written many books on skepticism. He said, and I plan to read his book, Why People Believe Weird Things. It will be a challenge because I suck at reading, but I also just got the audiobook of Carl Sagan's The Demon Haunted World and plan to listen to it at night before bed. It's a lot to take in, but at the same time, all of them are a wealth of knowledge. I'd like to join your ministry, and I look forward to the next sanctuary. He can't even attend. He can't come. He's watching them on YouTube. But how cool that just by hearing about it on this rollerblading podcast, we mentioned Ministry of Skepticism. And the fact, to me, the most interesting line in here, the most validating line is when he said that he didn't even know what it was that he was looking for until he saw this. But we all feel that void. And other religions are positioned to move in and fill it for people. Why shouldn't there be something for us that offers not just a theistic solution, but something that can offer an evidence-based, natural solution? And so here we are. We're in the sanctuary. You guys have made it. You're part of this service. We're trying to create this space. I'd like to bring up LuLu. So this will be our first prayer. Celina presented a quote from Carl Sagan, but now we're going to do one of our first prayers, a unique prayer for the Ministry of Skepticism. And it's about sanctuary. It's about this space. But all are welcome here. We've mentioned that belief in a deity or the absence of belief in a deity, neither of those are prerequisites. All that we ask is that you're open to following the evidence wherever it may lead. So LuLu, you can come up and we'll do the sanctuary prayer.
No. Okay. Sorry, guys. I'm kind of losing. I lost my voice from the competition, but I'll do my best.
And these are all in the prayer book. So if you guys all have prayer books, you can also follow along.
Okay. This is a space of sanctuary. All are welcome here. There are no ideas that are forbidden, no questions that are off limits. Beliefs are personal. Each of us is free to determine how we ascribe value and meaning. In this space, claims are neither accepted nor rejected by decree. We do not offer a fixed set of laws. There is no canon and there are no commandments. We offer patience and fellowship and the tools to guide you in your own pursuit of truth. Skepticism is a process, not a position. Believe what you will. What is private and personal is your own business. But for anything that can be measured or quantified, or that you hope to have validated or affirmed, so long as you are willing to follow the evidence in good faith, wherever it may lead, then you are welcome in this space. You will find sanctuary here. Let it be so.
Let it be so. Thank you, LuLu.
You're welcome.
Can y'all hear her at all? Yeah?
Who's my hater?
It's her mic, babe.
What?
Let me get
Oh.
your mic. Thank you. Okay, the main one I'm worried about is the incandescence. I want to make sure you're able to get to, and so I'm thinking about maybe just not having you do the rest of the prayer so you can save your voice, unless you tell me how you feel. Okay, and as long as they can hear you, then we're good. Great, thank you, babe. Kind of a production note is in the public spaces, because I mentioned that in the other services we've done like public libraries and stuff like that. We're able to play music. And so we have moments throughout where we're playing from a playlist. So again, to kind of build that, the music can tap into our emotions. We have kind of like emotional responses to it. So it's another way you can kind of like build meaning and a more transcendent experience. That was our first prayer. And now we're going to do our first kind of ritual ceremony. The lantern is kind of the symbol of the church. It's in our logo for the Ministry of Skepticism, and it's because we read the quote at the beginning from Carl Sagan. It was from his book, The Demon Haunted World. The subheading of The Demon Haunted World is a candle in the dark. So science, the metaphor there is that the candle represents science or the light of reason. And so we borrow that metaphor, and then playing off of the motif, the lantern is the way that we take that light out into the world. We spread the light, but it's also the way that we protect the light. So this is an icon that represents the Ministry of Skepticism. And so kind of to begin our service, as we move into the more ceremonial aspect, we will begin with a ceremonial lighting of the lantern. And we have a prayer that goes along with that, which Celina will read. And Lulu, do you want to do the lighting? You can do the lighting. I think we have a lighter. Yep. And okay, great.
We light the candle to remind us of the light of reason, the source of meaning and wonder in the world. And just as we light the candle, let us remember how the light was ignited in each of us as we were born curious and craving affection. We close the candle in the lantern to remind us that the light must be protected. Just as the flame can be fanned through the virtues of compassion and skepticism, so too can it be extinguished through fear and ignorance and neglect. Let each of us embody the light through the rigorous study and application of skeptical values. Let us spread the light through our shining example and through education and outreach. And let us protect the light by standing up for science and reason wherever darkness gathers. Be the light, spread the light, protect the light. And we repeat together. Be the light, spread the light, protect the light. Let it be so.
Cool. Thank you, Celina. Yeah, that was great. Cool. So that's a non-religious, religious ceremony. So now, just out of curiosity, because we're up here presenting this thing, but in the spirit of science and skepticism, it is a living, breathing, growing, evolving thing. Nothing set in stone. It's constantly seeking comment and feedback and revision. And we fully expect it to change and grow as we grow, based on input from you. And I am curious, how does that land? I mean, we talk about these ideas, right? Having prayers that aren't based on supernatural or necessarily deistic ideas or theistic ideas. And now that we've seen a demonstration of it, does that make sense? How does that land? I guess I don't know exactly. I don't expect you guys to raise your hand. I don't know. Maybe I'll put it this way. We do have a section at the end of this, or closer to the end. We'll open it up for question and comment. So as you guys are taking this in, maybe this is a good way to approach it. Be thinking if there's anything about it that you do have a question about it, or if there are any comments, things that you think work well, or things that you think there's room for improvement. We will give you an opportunity to share those things. So definitely be thinking about it in this way. It's not just a one direction thing. I mentioned that today's theme is meaning. So the way that we arrive at the themes is in the prayer books. We have on page 4, we have the 5 beacons. This is kind of the bones of our framework when we talk about a non-religious framework. I mentioned that this is not a cult insofar as it doesn't rely on any cult of personality. There's nothing special about me or these ideas. They just come from science. They come from skepticism. These things are all well established and have been around, far longer than we have. But if there's anything that is novel about what we're doing, it's just that we are creating a structure within which to talk about these things. But there's nothing divine or sacred about that. It's just giving us a starting place to talk about these ideas. So what we've got are these 5 beacons, and they are self-awareness, empathy, morality, reason, and agency. And the idea is that between all these things, it captures all the things that we would ever hope to want to talk about within something that purports to be or aspires to be a religion, or that offers to provide guidance for a meaningful, purposeful life. Because it is a religion based on science and skepticism, these beacons themselves come from empirical insights. The first four, self-awareness, empathy, morality, and reason, come from significant milestones in cognitive development as a brain develops. As our human brains develop, these are all based on significant stages of cognitive development. Hi, good morning. You're good. Hi. No, you're good. Good morning. Or good afternoon. Whatever the case may be. And then the fifth one, agency, whereas the first four are based on significant stages of cognitive development. The fifth one is based on genes, the source of our desires and our wants and our needs, our motivations, our genetic predisposition as they've evolved in us. So again, because it is an evidence-based religion, we don't look for or need anything outside of nature to find evidence for these discussions. Just another quick note, a little bit further on the structure. So each of the 5 beacons, we have a couple of tiers underneath each beacon. So each beacon leads to a revelation. So for instance, if the first beacon is self-awareness, the revelation then that naturally follows is that I exist, okay? And then underneath each revelation, then the revelation leads naturally to a virtue. The virtue that follows I exist is I am curious, right? We are born curious into the world. And then there is a second virtue that follows in each beacon, but we call it a discipline because whereas the first virtue is kind of intuitive, yeah, we are naturally curious. We are born curious into the world. The second virtue requires discipline. It requires work because they're not as intuitive, and in fact, sometimes they can be counterintuitive. Recognizing that we are fallible is not always easy. We don't always know the ways in which we can be wrong. And in fact, that's a large part of what skepticism aspires to do, is to point those out to us so that we know when our brains are playing tricks on us. The logical fallacies, the cognitive biases that we are all susceptible to. So the beacon that provided the source of our theme and our topic of discussion today is agency. The revelation under agency is that existence is meaningful. And the virtues are that I am motivated and I am dispassionate. But so the source of, or the topic of conversation for today's sanctuary is meaning. From the revelation that existence is meaningful. Thank you. Because this is a Ministry of Skepticism, and I keep giving a lot of lip service to science and skepticism, and I've mentioned that each of these beacons are inspired by empirical insights, I will also go all the way and acknowledge some of the specific scientific empirical insights that inform this beacon, that existence is meaningful, the beacon of agency. I mentioned that it hey, how are you? But I mentioned that it's agency is inspired by the idea that we've evolved to have genetic, or that we have preferences, that we have desires, wants, that we are motivated in large part by our genes. And the kind of the seminal insights from psychology and neuroscience that demonstrate this, that give us some empirical evidence for this, are twin studies. Most notably, the Minnesota twin study, which began at the end of the 70s. I think 1979. They conducted it all the way through the 90s. But what happened is you get these identical twins that were separated, and you track these twins over years, and they're raised in different homes, right? So here you get to see straight up the difference between environmental influence and genetic predisposition. And what they found is that the twins were much more similar in cognitive abilities, in IQ, in even things as trivial as like what they named their children and what their hobbies were. They were more similar to their twins than they were to their parents, their adoptive parents. And that tells us, right, how much of an influence their genes are playing on their personalities and who they are, which might feel surprising to us. It's the kind of thing that feels kind of counterintuitive, you know, because we feel like there's something special about our existence, you know, like, and that we're all born blank slates, and that we just sort of grow up and we respond to our influences and like our own self-determination. We create ourselves. But really, through this kind of novel and really clever study, you see how much is outside of your control, how much you didn't choose, how much your genes determine who you are. And your genes are not a life sentence written in stone. They still also respond to your environment, and we do have control over who we are. But you can see the influence of your genes. It's something that we must acknowledge from an evidence-based perspective. And these twin studies were corroborated by adoption studies. So children that were raised in homes outside of their biological families. And again, you see the same kinds of things. The adopted children bear more resemblance to their biological parents than the adoptive parents that raised them. So again, it's just further evidence of how much influence our genes have in our lives. And so all of that inspires our fifth beacon agency, which comes from this awareness that our motivations, our desires are largely inspired by our genes. So speaking of someone who's inspired by her genes, so LuLu had the benefit, maybe I'm being overly presumptuous there, but we share genes. She got half of her genes from me, but I also, in her environment, she was raised in a skeptical home, a skeptical household. And so when we talk about this religion, when we talk about this grand experiment of a religion based on scientific and skeptical ideas, well, I present here Exhibit A, this guinea pig that I've actually tried it with. I raised my daughter to have skeptical values. I didn't just raise her with the absence of religion. I gave her something. I gave her values based on something. I gave her a way to approach claims, a skeptical way to approach claims. And so now we're going to invite LuLu to say it in her own words, talking about living a life growing up with skepticism and science.
It's on, yeah. This one's for you, Stephen. Okay. Okay. As my dad said, and as you may already know about me, I was raised with skeptical principles, taught to question, to seek evidence, and to value truth over comfort. While moving recently, I came across some of my old notebooks. There were many entries that capture how those values have shaped the way I see the world, and I would like to share one with you now. It was written long before the Ministry of Skepticism was even an idea, but it reflects the roots of what we're building here today. Quote, having a scientific worldview does not make the natural world any less beautiful. Rather, it enhances its beauty by explaining how something so seemingly magical could come to be in a physical, material world. I don't need magic and mysticism. There is enough mystery and wonder in the real world, and that is why I am studying science. One of my favorite books of all time is For Small Creatures Such as We, written by Sasha Sagan, who is an author and science communicator as well as Carl Sagan's daughter. The title of her book comes from my favorite quote by her parents, and yes, it's my Instagram bio and also a tattoo, but whatever. Okay. For small creatures such as we, the vastness is bearable only through love. And that line puts into words what I believe is the most important thing in life. In the scale of this endlessly vast universe, we are tiny. Our lives may bear little relevance in the grand scheme of everything. I'd like to think they do, but we can't be sure. And so, Even if all of human history means nothing to the universe, the fact that we get to experience loving other beings here on this planet is the real treasure. We don't know what's out there. We don't know our ultimate significance, but we can take solace in the relationships we share. Our smallness becomes less daunting when we remember how lucky we are to love and be loved in this mysterious place. Another quote from Sasha Sagan. In her book, she writes, "My parents taught me that the provable, tangible, verifiable things were sacred. That sometimes the most astonishing ideas are clearly profound, but when they get labeled as facts, we lose sight of their beauty. It doesn't have to be this way. Science is the source of so much insight worthy of ecstatic celebration." End quote. And exactly. Science is something to be excited about and to celebrate, a truth my father instilled in me from a young age, and one that we are here today to share with you. She also says something that strongly resonates with me and possibly with many of you. For me, the biggest drawback to being secular is the lack of a shared culture. I can live without an afterlife, I can live without a God, but not without celebrations, not without community, not without ritual. And that is why we are here, because secular people deserve the same richness of community that religious traditions offer, the connection, the rituals, the celebrations, without having to compromise a commitment to reason and evidence. We need spaces where we can gather, honor our shared values, and celebrate the wonder of reality, which is exactly the kind of space we are building here together. Thank you.
Awesome, baby.
Thank you.
Thanks.
No more talks.
So that's really what we're doing. I feel like because this is brand new and there has to be so much exposition and we're talking about what we're doing instead of just doing what we're doing, as it grows and as it becomes more natural and as people are more familiar with kind of what we're trying to do and we're not constantly having to defend it or rationalize it or justify it or make sure people aren't too weirded out about it, we will settle into something more like that where we're just doing it and experiencing it and sharing the fellowship. So I appreciate all of your patience as you bear with us as we kind of ramp up, and it's kind of, there's a meta experience to it where we're talking about what we're doing as we're doing it. But I think that we all also appreciate when you see something like that as it actually happens. That's where we really resonate with it emotionally, and you can feel connected to a movement like this. So, baby, thank you for that, and thank you for sharing that. That was really great. Stephen's right. That is the best part of what we're doing. More of that. We have a couple of prayers that I'd like to share with you guys. As we watch that wonderful presentation from LuLu, and I see all of you guys here, and even being here at Blading Cup this week, I mean, there is so much that we have to be grateful for. This really is a wonderful, wonderful experience. We have a prayer that we've written to kind of capture that sentiment. It's our gratitude prayer. What page is it on, Ray? So it's on page 10 in our prayer books. And so we will start by, Celina, you can come up. That's a great idea. We've had 3 services in Texas. At the services, hi there. No, you're good. You're good. At the services, we invite people to come up and read the prayers, but there are people that have been to multiple services by now, so we get to alert them ahead of time, say, would you like to read, such and such prayer, and then they're built into the service. Right now, it's a lot of us back and forth because we're the only ones that have done this before. But we would like to have more voices. So if there is anyone that's interested in reading a prayer, someone like Ray.
Clearly, you set me up for that.
Okay. So we're going to invite Ray up to read the gratitude prayer. And Ray, go ahead and come up here because we're recording from over there, and she'll set you up with a mic. You can just, I think, hold it and use it on. Yeah.
Very cool.
Gratitude. We have so much to be grateful for. The very fact that we are here, that any of us should exist, despite the extraordinary odds against it, is truly a miracle. And the fact that we are here in this space together, sharing this experience of communion and fellowship, is a gift worth cherishing. So let us take a moment to be thoughtful and reflect upon this blessing, to enjoy the fellowship of friends and family and neighbors as we come together to celebrate the light of reason, the virtues of skepticism, and the miracle of existence. Let it be so.
Let it be so. Awesome. Perfect. Thank you, Ray.
Yes.
And thanks, Celina. Once again, great idea. So we have so much to be grateful for. This is an incredible weekend. We get to reconnect with old friends and share stories and skate together and meet new people. But even as we celebrate all that we have to be grateful for, it is important that we also keep a balanced perspective, and we remember that there's always a counterbalance, and that there are a lot of people who aren't able to be here. We have friends and family and people who may be struggling with mental or physical health issues. We are the beneficiaries of a favorable roll of the dice. The fact that we're here, we're better or worse in good health. Samuel, hopefully you'll get better soon. He hurt his wrist. It's healthy to also, anytime we are recounting our own blessings, it's healthy to also balance it and remember our compassion and extend compassion to those who, through no fault of their own, just aren't experiencing as much good fortune. So we also have a compassion prayer, which we offer as a counterbalance to balance the perspective of the gratitude prayer. Aaron, your father is a Lutheran pastor. Do you have any of that in you? Are you able to present? Oh, dang. Who wants to present? Anybody else? Do I have any volunteers? Raise a hand. Women are also welcome to present in this church. But Randy, Dana, and listen, no one's obligated. I'm extending the opportunity. If no one wants to do it, it's no big deal. We will keep it going. No, okay, no hands, no worries. So the next prayer is the compassion prayer. Do you want to do it?
Even as we recount the things that we have to be grateful for, and there are many, let us also observe how much of our fate is determined by circumstances outside of our control. There is not one among us who deserves credit for choosing their genes or their parents or where or when they were born. And neither is there one among us who deserves blame for their burdens or their afflictions or their shortcomings. It is a fact of nature that our fate is neither a reward nor a punishment. No one deserves praise or blame for their being. Let us view the world honestly and see each other truly, and recognize that all are deserving of compassion and grace. Let it be so.
Great, thank you. So what is skepticism? We've talked a lot about science and skepticism. Has anybody, when we talk about skepticism, does that mean anything to anyone? Have you guys heard of scientific skepticism as a movement? Because a lot of us, skepticism, and when we say that we are skeptical about things, it's not a made-up word. We all have kind of ideas about that, what that means. Like, we know what it means to kind of be doubtful of things, to not believe stuff. And I think that when used in casual conversation, it leads people to kind of have the wrong ideas about what scientific skepticism is, in the style of what Carl Sagan is promoting. and a skeptical approach to claims, an evidence-based approach to knowledge. When we think of skepticism, casually, colloquially, we think of people who don't believe things. So maybe vaccine skeptics. They don't believe that vaccines are safe or effective, right? Is that what we're talking about? No. They are deniers. They deny the evidence. Skeptics follow the evidence. People also think, oh, well, like we get this live. You say, oh, it's a Ministry of Skepticism. They go, oh, yeah, I'm skeptical of everything. That's me. Well, no, that's not exactly what we're doing here. We don't doubt that we landed on the moon. We don't doubt the safety or efficacy of vaccines. We don't doubt that the Earth is generally a sphere. There are flat earthers who deny the evidence of a spherical Earth. There are people who deny the evidence that we landed on the moon. That's not skeptics. They are deniers. We follow the evidence. And we are open to all evidence. If there is good evidence that vaccines aren't safe or effective, we are open to it. But it's got to be pretty good evidence because the scientific consensus among the experts says that they're safe and effective. We follow the evidence wherever it may lead. And an important, I think, distinction or note to point out about that is generally, as you look at it, people who are deniers, for instance, if they think that vaccines are not safe or effective or that they are dangerous, they deny the scientific consensus, those people generally are motivated by a narrative. They have an idea before they come into it, before they've even started looking at the evidence. They're motivated by an ideology. They're motivated by a narrative. They are not following the evidence. As skeptics, we're not advocating for any particular conclusion. It's not important to us that God exists or does not exist. If there's good evidence for a God, we are open to it. We will adapt and change our views accordingly. Skeptics care more about the process than the conclusion. So accordingly, as a church, as a ministry, we're not offering a set of laws or conclusions. We are only offering the process. And then what we encourage all of you, we apply these skills, these tools, in our own pursuit of knowledge, and it provides guardrails and the means by which to navigate a sea of information and to distinguish between competing ideas. Skepticism is also not common sense. That's another thing. When you start to explain skepticism, it's like critical thinking. Again, everybody's like, oh yeah, that's me. That's what the world needs, is more common sense. But it's not that. They are actual tools. Another thing, we've given you all prayer books, but we've also given you Carl Sagan's Skeptical Toolkit. So we mentioned Carl Sagan's book, The Demon Haunted World, which is actually, that is referenced on the back inside cover, the book, if you want to know more about the whole book. But within the book, he has what's called a baloney detection kit. We've renamed it the Skeptic's Toolkit, but it's the same thing. Everything in here is an excerpt from Carl Sagan's book. It provides an introduction to these tools that I keep talking about, but he introduces us to some cognitive biases. He introduces us to some logical fallacies. I encourage you guys all to engage with this on your own time. We're not going to go through the whole thing here, but the prayer books and these Skeptic Toolkits I want you all to leave with, and you can do with them what you will. We will talk about one cognitive bias, just to kind of, I think it's helpful to understand and make these, bring these ideas to light. But it's a major one. When people talk about cognitive biases, kind of like one of the first ones is confirmation bias. But especially in a conversation like this, where we are talking about meaning, or even following our conversation about vaccines, right? If, for instance, you begin with the premise that vaccines are dangerous or that they're not effective, and you go out and you seek information that supports that, there's lots of articles you can find and videos and clips on YouTube. But if you're only seeking out information that confirms your preconceived notion, that is a form of confirmation bias. If you disregard or avoid information which contradicts it, That is a form of confirmation bias. And we are all guilty of this. We do it all the time. And this is an important thing to recognize, that what we're describing here, these cognitive biases, these logical fallacies, they're not like rhetorical tactics. They're not like things we choose to do. It's not like we don't decide, hey, I'm going to be a vaccine denier. Here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to avoid all this information. These things happen subconsciously. They happen outside of our awareness. It's just the way we are wired, which is why skepticism is such a critical tool. It's why it's not just common sense, because you will not intuit these skills. Our common sense misleads us all the time. But if you're aware that confirmation bias is something that exists, and when someone shows it to you, how it operates, what it is, then it helps you to look out for it in your own life. Yes, it will also help you to recognize it in other people, in other people's arguments. But the real power in it is recognizing it in ourselves, changing the way that we approach knowledge and claims. That's the beauty of skepticism. And science is built on this model, this idea of falsifiability. If you really want to test the strength, the veracity of a claim, don't try to prove it. Don't look for things that confirm it. If you really want to know how fit a claim or an idea is, try to disprove it. Falsifiability is a bedrock foundational principle of science and skepticism. And it's why one of the virtues, one of the core disciplines of our ministry, you'll find it there in the beacons, is I am fallible. Recognizing that we can be wrong, and that very often our brains deceive us and mislead us in very mischievous ways. We are all fallible. So I'm going to do my illumination. LuLu gave a testimony. We call it Incandescence. We're using our light motif here from the candle and the lantern. So we've rebranded some things. We have an incandescent speech. I'm going to give an illumination. But we're talking about meaning here. Because as LuLu alluded to in her incandescence, but many of us can feel disconnected from meaning. And it's not because we don't experience meaning in our lives. It's because we're told that this life is not enough. That true meaning has to be rooted in something outside of this existence. There's a popular Christian apologist named William Lane Craig. And he sums this notion up succinctly when he argues that without God and immortality, that life itself is absurd. There is no ultimate significance. This is what we are told. A few months ago, if you guys will remember, there was an Air India flight bound for London, and it crashed shortly after takeoff. All 243 passengers on board the flight died, except for one, who incredibly not only survived the crash that killed everyone else, including the entire flight crew, he didn't just survive, he walked away from the flight. And you can imagine the sight of airplane in flames, everyone on board perished, and see one man walking from that wreckage. Our hearts ache for the victims and the families, but this tragedy presents an interesting conundrum for apologists like Craig, because by all accounts, we've witnessed a miracle. This man walking away from the wreckage where everyone else has perished. And yet, it feels wholly inappropriate to call this a miracle when hundreds of other people died. How do you reconcile those two things? A similar phenomenon happens all the time on battlefields, although we don't recognize it quite as easily. No, you're good, thank you. A similar thing happens on battlefields all the time. When gods are thanked, are given credit for sparing the pious soldiers, but no equivalent credit is given for the equally pious soldiers who lost their lives. And this paradox was cleverly articulated as long ago as the late 16th to early 17th century by Francis Bacon, who was a philosopher of science and one of the earliest and most influential proponents of the scientific method. In fact, he is one of the first people to call for and advocate for a scientific method, that we needed one. But so Francis Bacon was visiting a temple, and his host was, showing him around the temple and showed him a magnificent painting of soldiers who had escaped a shipwreck after paying their vows, much like our one miraculous gentleman who walked away from the burning fuselage of the aircraft. But so they'd done a painting of the soldiers who'd survived the shipwreck after paying their vows. And when the host asked Francis Bacon if he now acknowledged the power of the gods, seeing this magnificent painting, Francis Bacon replied, "Aye, but where are they painted that were drowned after their vows?" Which is exactly the point that we're making. Certainly there were many more soldiers on those ships who also paid their vows but didn't survive. And where are they painted? This is an example of survivorship bias. We focus only on those that survived while overlooking all those that did not. And this bias is often masked on the battlefield by the large distribution of people that survive and die. A lot of people live, a lot of people die. As the saying goes, one death is a tragedy, but 1 million deaths is a statistic. And this is what makes the Air India flight so interesting, because the numbers are so imbalanced, with one survivor on one side and so many other perishing on the other, that it's harder to hide that bias. Why should one man be spared when so many others perished? Why was he chosen to survive? Was he chosen to survive? And by whom? And then does that mean that all the others were chosen to perish? By whom? And if so, why? So despite William Lane Craig's assertion to the contrary, the Air India flight lays bare not the absurdity of life without a God, but rather the absurdity of trying to assign meaning and providence to improbable causes and events. Humans are notoriously bad at statistics. And we're bad at comprehending extremely large and extremely small numbers. Our brains are just not cut out for it. As the Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman wrote in his book, Thinking Fast and Slow, the difficulties of statistical thinking contribute to a puzzling limitation of our mind. Our excessive confidence in what we believe we know, and our apparent inability to acknowledge the full extent of our ignorance and the uncertainty of the world we live in, we're prone to overestimate how much we understand about the world and to underestimate the role of chance in events. The fact is, we're ending the quote, but the fact is that the scale of the universe is so large that even extremely improbable events happen all the time. It's far more compassionate to acknowledge the indifferent and improbabilistic It's far more compassionate to acknowledge the indifferent and probabilistic nature of reality than it is to try and divine the intentions of a supernatural being tugging at the levers of existence. In the natural model, we can marvel at the incredible improbability of being the sole survivor of a commercial flight, a miracle if ever there was one, while also being aghast at the horror of all the lives tragically lost. There's no contradiction. There is no tension between these observations. Without the specter of a grand arbiter hovering above us, choosing who lives and who dies, there's no reason to tie the fates of the victims and the survivors together. There's no guilt in surviving, and there's no blame in death. There's just the indifference of the universe and the nature of probabilities. I'd like to close with a quote from a theoretical physicist, Sean Carroll. This is taken from his 2016 book, The Big Picture. And Sean Carroll, much like Carl Sagan was in his time, is now a modern science communicator and a very eloquent defender of a evidence-based view of existence. But he wrote in his book, "We are the miracle. We human beings, not a break the laws of physics kind of miracle, a miracle in that it is wondrous and amazing how such complex, aware, creative, caring creatures could have arisen in perfect accordance with those laws. Our lives are finite, unpredictable, and immeasurably precious. Our emergence has brought meaning and mattering into the world. Let it be so." So we've written a prayer that captures this sentiment about meaning. All these ideas that we've been talking about, from LuLu's personal experience, from the Air India flight, the indifference of the universe, the probabilistic nature of the universe. We have a prayer because part of our charge of a religion is to kind of condense and compress these ideas into kind of emotional snippets of information that we can access and refer to in times that are appropriate throughout our lives. So to read the meaning prayer, I guess Celina will have Celina read the meaning prayer. Unless Ray wants to read it. Okay, good. Thank you, Ray. Good.
Thank you, Ray.
Be the designated reader.
Grateful for you.
The D arm. Thank you. Meaning. We are how the universe thinks about itself. There is an extraordinary and extraordinarily improbable event. For the entire history of the world, over 4.5 billion years, and spanning the breadth of the entire cosmos, some 2 trillion galaxies, we are the only example, so far as we know, of the universe becoming self-aware. The universe is dark and indifferent. But every question we ask, every emotion we express, and every act we commit with purpose and intent shines a light brighter than any star. Meaning is illuminated only through awareness. Measured against the vastness of the cosmos, the odds of your existence are vastly small. Yet here you are, made from the same stuff found in the planets and the stars, contemplating the meaning of existence, a miracle of nature, if ever there was one. Your existence is a miracle. You are a miracle. Let it be so. There you go.
Cool. So we only have one more ritual to close the ceremony. We're going to basically blow out the candle. I mentioned that we would have an opportunity for questions and comments, so I'm going to open that up now. I will say this, though, because this is kind of like a public forum. We're not all equally comfortable in public speaking settings like this. Once this is over, we're not going anywhere. We're also still going to be here. Some of us are going to stay and have brunch. You're all welcome to stay and have brunch. We're happy to talk about this anytime. So if you want to hang out, we'll talk. I know all of you personally. There will be plenty of occasions as we go through our lives to continue this conversation. So don't feel obligated to say anything or ask anything now, but you are welcome to. I'm opening that opportunity. So are there any questions, any comments, any feedback so far on what you've witnessed? Our designated speaker, let's hear it.
Well,
Oh wait, hold on. But I want wait. I want you to have a mic, so we can record it also.
Oh, wait, I gotta stand there.
Sure, you don't have to,
Okay.
but
I will-
so long as we
I
can
will
hear
happily
you.
stand there. Microphone. I just wanted to.
You can just hold it, right?
What?
Just hold it
Oh,
like a mic.
nice. So first, I just wanted to thank you guys for sharing this, because this is a really special gathering. When I heard the podcast a little bit, I started to become curious about it a little bit. I'm someone that grew up, and I'll tell you why it resonates with me. I'm someone that grew up in the Catholic Church, right? So I was an altar boy when I was a kid. I went to a very secular, a very religious Jesuit high school, and what I was met with from a really young age, and I didn't know that it was skepticism, but I did the no thing in my universe there of a very religious forward education. I asked the question why, and that was no good. Right. And so I'm not making a comparison. I'm just, my personal experience with this whole thing was I grew up in the church, and as an adult I have not had a community or anything like that for a long time, since high school. And so the fact that there's thought like this, you know what I mean, and a community and people that are thinking this way, because again, it's not something that I knew that I was missing or looking for, or you know what I mean, even interested in. But it's really great to know that this exists. So thank you guys for sharing. Yeah. Absolutely,
All right.
buddy. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Ray, for sharing that. That's cool. And again, there's no more powerful testimony than personal experience, things like that. So I really appreciate you sharing that. And that highlights an important part of what we're doing and what we're offering here and why we're doing it. I'm careful to point out that our existence, our intention is not to denigrate any other religion. There are plenty of people that are completely fulfilled from their Catholic faith or any other faith. But for people who ask questions or who run into brick walls within their faith or encounter dangerous questions or unacceptable questions, we offer an alternative. There are no dangerous questions within skepticism. We welcome questions, because we're not tied to any conclusions. We will follow the evidence. So we want to go along with you on whatever your journey is. We will follow the questions wherever they take us. No questions are off limits. No ideas are off limits. There are no forbidden questions. So I'm happy too that we can offer this and that we can go on this journey together. Our next service, although I don't think it applies to anyone, but just so you know, because we are trying to live stream them. We've had some issue with our Instagram account. It's made it inaccessible to us, but we will get that sorted out. Our next service is already scheduled. It will be later this month, November 22nd. It will be in Dallas, but we encourage you to try and get on the live stream or to watch it on YouTube after the fact. Join us for brunch if you've got time. Go to the Negretti Memorial if you've got time for that. See all of our rollerblading friends and family out there. Honor Negretti's memory and have a good time skating out at Paramount Skate Park. If you enjoyed this, make sure you're following us on Instagram. We have a website, we have an Instagram. Just stay in contact. We want you to be a part of the process. We want your feedback. We want your involvement. And if you think there are other people who might benefit from this, who might get something from it, who might resonate with it, share it with them. Spread the light. It's why we're doing it. This is built and intended to spread the message. So share it. All right, so we opened the ceremony, we opened the sanctuary with the consecration of the candle and the lantern. We lit the lantern. So now we're going to do the counterbalance. We're going to close the ceremony by blowing out the candle. I'm just going to do it. So I'll read this one, and you think you have it in you to blow out the candle? Okay. And I think, babe, instead of carrying the lantern out there, you can just hold, but you can hold it up, is what we'll do. Can you manage that? Okay. You got it. Home stretch, baby. Okay, so we turn our attention. This is the iron and glass prayer. It should be at the end of the prayer books. We turn our attention once again to the lantern, an encasement of iron and glass that protects the candle burning within. The candle itself is a symbol representing the light of knowledge and reason. The light must be protected. Protect the light. Now take up your lanterns and carry them out into the world. Hold them high and let their radiant light shine against the encroaching darkness of pseudoscience, superstition, and unreason. Science is a candle in the dark. The lantern is a beacon of rationality. Spread the light. Religion is a powerful tool, and we employ it earnestly in the service of our skeptical message. We acknowledge the role that narrative and ritual play in making our teachings more palatable and our lessons more transmissible. Even as our spirits are raised in transcendence, our feet remain grounded in reality. We draw a bright line between the tales that we tell ourselves and the truth. Blow out the candle. The candle carries no meaning outside of our metaphors. The lantern is just iron and glass after all. The only source of meaning, so far as we know, is you and your self-awareness, the most extraordinary creation in all of the cosmos. You are the source of reason. You are the source of knowledge. You are how the universe thinks about itself. Feed your curiosity. Sharpen your skeptical tools. Spread the message of skepticism and critical thinking. You are the light. Be the light. Spread the light. Protect the light. And we'll say it again together. Be the light. Spread the light. Protect the light. Let it be so. Thank you. We did it.